When United signed Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, the expectations were clear. United were adding two of the Premier League's most productive attackers from the previous season, between them contributing to 35 goals in the 24-25 Premier League season. But now, looking forward, is there a world where two of United's big money signings from last summer, they don't make the first 11 on a regular basis next year? With a left winger starting to rank very high on our shopping list for next season, and Mbeumo showing signs of struggling to find a home under Carrick in the starting 11. We obviously don't know who the coach is going to be next season, but these two seeing more of the sidelines is starting to become a distinct possibility.
Nah, I don't believe it.
So far under Carrick, we've seen Mbeumo play across the front line, and he swapped Cunha between the left wing and the striker positions in recent games as well. But nothing's been all that convincing for either player so far. In today's video, I want to break down the struggles that the two of them have had since United have moved to a back four. I want to talk a bit about what the players themselves need to be doing, and also what the coach needs to be doing to get the best out of them in a United shirt as well. As always, guys, drop a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new around here, and let's get into it.
Let's go.
For both players, we know they outperformed the XG heavily last season. Mbeumo overperformed by 6.8 goals, Cunha overperformed by a roughly 6.4 goals. So that level of finishing is obviously going to be very difficult to sustain. And only really the elites in world football do it season upon season. So part of the kind of drop-off that we've really seen in this season is actually just them sort of regressing to the norm of what their numbers really show. Interestingly enough though, the underlying chance numbers haven't really collapsed all that much. This season for Mbeumo, he's currently at 0.38 non-penalty XG per 90, and for Cunha it's 0.32. So those are actually similar or even better than what they've had in previous seasons, which suggests the issue isn't chance creation, it's variance in their finishing. Specifically looking at Cunha now, and he was the one I was most worried about when United obviously knew when Carrick was coming in charge, we knew that he would switch to a back four. He was a signing that was really tailor-made for Ruben Amorim's system, playing as a left-sided number 10, taking away the defensive responsibilities, but allowing him to roam inside, drop deep, dribble and shoot, without forcing him to play largely on the touchline. A carbon copy of the role that he had at Wolves, that was what we were thinking. He's had his moments under Carrick so far, but really the best of them came when he was that impact sub off the bench in those games up against City and Arsenal. And there was always going to be big question marks if United moved to a back four, where would Cunha really fit in if United were playing that sort of 4-2-3-1. He can only really play as a striker in certain games where you're not really facing a low block, because as soon as he's going to come up against a low block, he's not an elite box striker, he's not dominant in the air, and he does prefer dropping deep. So if teams don't really allow him a lot of time and space on the ball, then he doesn't really suit playing in that striker role. Then from the left wing, where we've seen him in the most recent games, he's got less room to turn and drive really centrally, use that really long athletic dribbling that we know he has, and we're also relying on him to beat his fullback 1v1 more often than not, and that's not necessarily Cunha's game. In the last few weeks, we've been coming up against these low blocks, and Cunha hasn't had that space in order to drive the ball into, and in turn he struggled. And United have a huge problem currently with width in this team. Specifically with Cunha, he regularly likes to wander infield off the wing, which without the fullback holding the width outside of him, it condenses the field massively, and it can make it much easier for teams to defend against us. In Cunha's defence, a dynamic fullback who could do that overlapping role on that left-hand side would massively help him, but it wouldn't solve everything. And Cunha playing left wing reminds me heavily of Mata playing right wing all of those times for us. It was always a square peg in a round hole. And Carrick was right. Cunha did play a little bit wider in that game up against Newcastle, especially compared to what he was doing really in the first half against Crystal Palace. But still, it's far from natural for Cunha, and there were still circumstances where he could have really stretched the play, but never really did. There's a reason why when Carrick first took charge that Dogu was starting in that left wing position over Cunha when he was fit. And now with Dogu coming back soon, I wouldn't be too surprised to see Dogu starting again on that left wing spot, and then you're reducing then Cunha to those impactful cameos off the bench again. And it all just leaves me asking the question, for £62.5 million, Should we be expecting more? Now for Mbeumo, it's a little bit more complicated because he was playing as a right winger for Brentford, and that's where he had some of his best moments in a Brentford shirt as well. So we were thinking, well, he would seamlessly just transition to being the right winger in Carrick's back four system. Well, it hasn't quite worked out like that. He did well in those games where we had him as a striker. He had those big spaces to run into. He also had more space to drop and link up play as well. Since then, he's had a couple of games on the left wing. Now he's returned to the right-hand side. But largely, he's come up against teams playing that low block, and they're reducing the amount of transition moments that he can really have. And that's where Mbeumo really thrives. That situation up against Everton, creating that winning goal, that's where you really want Mbeumo playing. Him receiving in those sort of areas as quick as you possibly can. And under Thomas Frank from the right wing, Mbeumo really benefited from playing that sort of counter-attacking style. He would get those early balls in behind, and he would also get the crosses so he could arrive late into the box as well. But Brentford were one of the best transition teams in the league under Thomas Frank. And Mbeumo was elite in attacking in those moments. And at Brentford, Mbeumo received 351 progressive passes, and that was second only to Mo Salah in the league. And that sums up the role that Mbeumo really had at Brentford. They constantly hit early balls into space for Mbeumo to really work in. And that's where he's really elite. But now at United, all of a sudden, he's not really getting that. Instead, he's receiving in tighter spaces, and he just has less time and space to really work on the ball. So he struggled then to make an impact because of it. Adding to that, some of the missed chances that he's had recently, and Mbeumo all of a sudden doesn't look like a guaranteed starter. Now all of a sudden there's calls for Ahmad to regain that starting spot on the right-hand side, as he's just far more comfortable receiving out wide on that right-hand side, working in those sort of tight spaces, and he can be much more of a 1v1 threat as well. So again, for Mbeumo, £65 million, should we be expecting more? In hindsight, did United need to go out and spend such big money on both players last season? Particularly when we knew we needed a centre midfielder really heavily in this squad. And for me, I'm really still on the fence, particularly regarding Cunha. Because I do think Mbeumo can work in certain situations from the right-hand side for United. I'm not as worried about him. But with Cunha, I don't really see him being a starting left winger for United. He can be a striker in certain situations, but I'm really struggling to see his fit. And that's why for £60-odd million, I was worried about it. Because he seemed like one of the signings where you were really doubling down on Ruben Amorim's system. But Ineos didn't do that overall with the rest of the signings. So again, it's just a little bit where we've been a little bit muddled, I think, over the last couple of years, going for certain managers' styles and systems, rather than focusing on something overall, overarching systems, which is what Ineos have promised us. They've said that obviously managers can come and go, but you're going to have this overriding hierarchy to it all, which are going to be overseeing everything. But so far, I'm less than convinced with all of them. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Do you think both of them can really work as starters next season? Or do you think they need replacing sooner rather than later? Let me know down in the comments down below. But both of them, you're looking now, the underlying metrics are still strong enough. United have some pivotal games coming up now. So I'm just hoping that in this next few weeks now, in the run-in, obviously for the Champions League places, I'm hoping that Cunha and Mbeumo can really show up now, show their worth. They've given us glimpses so far this season, but can they give us just that little bit extra now for the rest of this season now, and obviously going into next campaign as well. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.